Welcome back, viewers, to the third chapter of this big ol' Five Nights at Wario's Retrospective series. I know it's been a few quiet months on this channel, but that's mainly because I wanted to start going for a more quality over quantity approach on this channel. But I'm back to continue the ongoing fnaf Retrospective series I started all the way back in August of 2022. In this episode, I'll be looking back on the seemingly fan-favorite entry in the series, Five Nights at Wario's 3. But once again, like last time, I'd just like to thank you all for the support on each video I've uploaded this far this year. I'm really glad this whole quality over quantity angle is paying off, and it's all thanks to you guys, so thanks again. But with all that being said, let's get into this threequel that technically is the finale of the series. So unlike with the previous two games, I don't have nearly as much pre-release stuff to go over this time, but there's still some notable things to mention. When approaching this threequel, WWW Wario wanted to find a way to put a fresh new spin on the gameplay loop instead of making another cheap imitation of the official FNAF games. He wanted to give this game not only memorability, but also replay value, which is something even the official game struggled with. But one idea he had in mind for this sequel was that it should take place in a house.
I want to do something differently, something unique that can make people play this and think this is not just another FNAF fan game with closed doors and flashlights. They wanted to make the game something people could remember and something that could make it stand out, make it fun, and give it replay value. And if I couldn't make that, if I couldn't come up with anything, I didn't want to make it. Because I didn't really see a point then. It would just be another FNAF clone with Mario characters. It would just be another Final Warriors 1. So that's kind of when I thought about the idea that what if you were locked in a house this time and not a factory? Don't have an office. If you don't have an office, where do you hide? Well, you hide whenever you can, whatever you can.
And with these ideas in mind, WWW Wario got to work on the next installment. March 4th, 2015 was when the first teaser trailer dropped for the game, showing off all the cameras and Wario's very interesting redesign. So after all that, you'd expect that to be it. You know, just, oh cool, house setting, very interesting. By the way, this was before FNAF 4 dropped, so that kind of environment was actually a stranger to the series at the time. But then, the very end of the trailer hits you with the biggest twist this game has. Choose a room to hide in. With those 6 words, it was clear this game was not a cheap imitation. Now, unlike the last two games, FNAF 3 actually had some teasers that were released during the pre-release phase. Through all my research, these were the ones I was able to find, each of them showing up 3 characters that would be appearing in this game. One veteran, one brand new, and one... I'll talk about you later. After all this, Docker received a sneak peek demo on March 14th. But then, on April 20th, 2015, which is actually my channel birthday, so that's some fun trivia, WWW Wario released the full game to the public. So with the release out of the way, let's get into the gameplay. Compared to the first two games, this one really changed the game entirely. No longer are you confined to just one area of the map, but instead you can go to each room of the house and each one has a new mechanic. However, it is impossible to play every room in one playthrough, as there's not only 2 split paths, but only 3 rooms can be played, since Night 1 and Night 5 are pre-selected. Also, much like how the mechanics are different in each room, the characters are too. Each room will give you an assortment of enemies, and you'll have to figure out each of their mechanics to deal with them properly. And to keep things at a steady pace, I'm just going to talk about all the characters in the game right now, so that way I don't have to stop to talk about each one later. So, starting off, we have our main man, Wario. This time around, he's been given a very drastic redesign that gives him a more... vibe. Wario could technically appear in every night depending on the rooms that you pick, but the rooms that he does appear in are Living Room 1, Kitchen, Living Room 2, and Playroom for the left route, and for the right route he's a threat in only 2 rooms, which are both on night 3, meaning you will be seeing less of him if you pick the right route, which is a shame. Next up is Waluigi, who doesn't really seem to have any noticeable changes. He shows up in Living Room 2, Bedroom 1, and the hallway. For the right route, he shows up in both rooms on night 4, which are Laundry and Living Room 3. And for the last of the veteran characters, Mario, who also doesn't have any design changes. He could appear in both night 4 rooms on the left route, that being the hallway and playroom, and on the right route he can only appear in the laundry, so definitely a lack of him in this game. Speaking of Mario, his brother finally makes a return to the series. Yeah, so Luigi was absent in the second game for lore reasons, but the real reason is probably because there was no room for him. He does, however, get a new redesign in this game, which bloodies him up. Luigi appears in Kitchen, Bedroom 1, and Hallway for the left route, and only appears in Laundry on the right. So if you want a lot of Luigi, choose the left route. Here's where it gets interesting though, because the last 3 characters I'll be going over are all brand new to the series. First of which being Ashley. Her design is fairly basic, mainly just giving her white eyes and a wide smile. She can only appear in the right route rooms, which are bathroom and staircase. This next guy debuts alongside Ashley on night 2, and that guy being Yoshi. Now yes, he did appear as an Easter egg in fnaf 2, but not as an active antagonist, so he's still technically new. Like Luigi, Yoshi is also bloodied up, but he has no pupils. He can appear in Playroom, but not physically. Yeah, I'll explain why later. And on the right route, he can appear in Bathroom and Living Room 3. Phew, that's all the characters I'll talk about for now, but there is at least one more that I'll talk about later. But finally, let's get on to the rooms. This is 1 out of 2 rooms that is pre-selected, meaning you're forced to play it. The mechanics of this room are simpler than simple. If Wario appears on the left, look to the right, and if he appears in the mirror above you, flip up the monitor, and after a few seconds, he should be gone. I gotta say though, this is probably one of the dullest night 1s in a FNAF game I've ever experienced. Yeah, I get that's usually how most night 1s go, but the gameplay of this room feels very soulless. For most of the night, you could just sit there looking to the right and Wario wouldn't even attack you since, you know, he can if you're looking to the right. And he might not even go into the mirror that often, meaning, yeah, you'll just be sitting there looking to the right and nothing will happen and you win. Not to mention, what is this face that randomly appears? Is it a hallucination put there for laughs? I guess I'll never know. By the way, to make this section a bit more interesting, I'll rate each room from a scale of 1 to 5. So obviously, Living Room 1 gets a 1 out of 5. Very boring, but I will admit the atmosphere is decently eerie. But again, the fact that this room is forced onto you feels like a crime. Anyways, let's move on to our first split path. I'll be doing this like a book, going left path to right path, meaning our next room is... From what I've seen in the community, this room is quite infamous amongst players. Why is that? Well, let's first break down the mechanics. This night features Wario and Luigi, and they'll be trying to get to you through this doorway. If they appear in the doorway, use the fuel to light up the room, and doing this will scare them off. Now, the reason why this room is infamous is when you use the fuel while no one's in the room, it will cause Wario and Luigi to become more aggressive, which most of the time causes an instant death. Many just cannot beat this room, and I can understand why to an extent, but here's a simple way to beat this room every time. Track them. It's best to figure out Wario and Luigi's route because that's the key to beating this room. If Wario and Luigi are in their last stage before they enter the kitchen, don't get trigger happy once they're gone. Instead, check to see if they backtrack to a previous room, that way you don't mistakenly press the button and die instantly. Again, this room is not as hard as some people say, and if anything, it's a lot fairer compared to the bathroom. But I'll talk about that one later. For now, I'll give the kitchen a 3.5 out of 5. It can get a little repetitive, but it's more enjoyable than the last room, so it gets some bonus points. The sequel to the first room, Living Room 2 does have a lot more going on than the first, but it's still kind of an room. This room features Wario and Waluigi. Wario attacks from the left side of the room, and when he does, just look to the right, much like Living Room 1. while Luigi will attack from the doorway in front of you, however you can't normally see him. To repel him, shine the light into the dark room and he will be off. Like Living Room 1 though, I'm not really a fan of this room. I feel like having Wario attack from the left side again is a little uninspired. Waluigi is more interesting to deal with, but still, his mechanic is more on the uncreative side. Plus, on my playthrough, he didn't even do that much, so it was really just me looking to the right a majority of the time. I think this one gets a 1.5 out of 5, and that extra half is Waluigi's mechanic, because without it, this and Living Room 1 would pretty much be on par with each other. Don't get too comfy in here, because this isn't a bedroom you want to be sleeping in. Probably because there's a high chance of bed bugs, and the bed is also uncomfortable. Oh yeah, right. Luigi and Waluigi are active in this room, and they will both make their way to the curtains in front of you. Like the kitchen, for example, the key is to track their movements, that way you know when one of them is in front of you. Plus, tracking them is easier than the kitchen, because you have an unlimited camera battery here. Yeah, that's something I've neglected to mention until now. The monitor in this game has a power meter, and using it for a long period of time will drain the battery. I mean, you'll have to wait for it to charge, and that leaves you vulnerable in some instances. But in this room, you won't have to worry about it dying on you. However, the trade-off to the unlimited camera battery is that the camera sometimes flips upside down, and the lamp has limited power. Yes, this lamp is what allows you to scare off Luigi and Waluigi, and if it runs out of juice, then you're practically dead. So always use it sparingly. I'll give this room a 3 out of 5. Being the only room with unlimited camera battery while also messing with the cameras as a repercussion is a neat idea, and having to track both Luigi and Waluigi closely is another nice addition to the gameplay. So yeah, decent room. The second to last room for the left path, I think the hallway is another decent room. This room, since it's a hallway, it's not really a room, but regardless, this room features Mario, Waluigi, and Luigi. However, this is one of the more unique ones, simply because you cannot see a single one of the characters as the cameras do not work here. So, what do you do when you can't see no evil? You hear no evil, of course. Yes, the way to keep track of them is to listen for their sound effects. Each of them makes a distinct one, so be sure to keep note of which one belongs to who. If I had one negative, albeit I guess a nitpick, is that they weren't that active when I played through it. I mean, Luigi never attacked me at all, so that should let you know what I mean. Even so, I'll give the hallway a 3.5 out of 5. It's one of the more unique ones, and it would have probably been a lot more challenging if they attacked more often. And finally, for the last room on the left route, we have the playroom. The characters for this one are Wario, Mario, and Yoshi. However, Wario and Yoshi don't appear until something specific happens, but I'll talk about that soon. And the goal for this room is to keep 2 music boxes wound up, because if they run out, Wario and Yoshi will kill you instantly. Now where does Mario come into play? Through this TV, of course. Just like in fnaf 1, Mario will gradually get closer to you through the TV, and when he appears in your room, simply pull up the monitor and you'll be good. Now in concept, the idea for 2 music boxes can be an interesting mechanic, but in execution, this room just ends up feeling monotonous. Yoshi's music box changes cameras each time you pull up the monitor, meaning you'll have to track it down constantly. You'd think that would be difficult, but it's really not. In fact, during this recording, I accidentally clicked off the screen and I thought I was screwed, yet I still managed to beat it. Mario being just like his first game counterpart isn't exactly a compliment, since just like in that game, he's very useless. So in the end, I'll give Playroom a 2 out of 5. I like its ideas and concept, but the execution just fell flat. But that concludes the gameplay section, at least for the first half of it, because now it's time to get started on the right route. The first room for the right route, the bathroom, is another room that is pretty unique. The enemies for this room are 2 newcomers, Ashley and Yoshi. Now, how is this room unique, you ask? Well, the key to defending yourself in this night is... okay, not really. More specifically, it's pills. Okay, still similar, but regardless, these things repel Ashley and Yoshi. Each pill works on them, so there's no need to remember which one works on who. What you do need to remember, however, is that each pill causes a different side effect. Short sight causes your eyesight to completely black out, but you can still see the cameras. I recommend knowing both Ashley and Yoshi's positions when using this one, because you cannot see when they enter your room, so they can still kill you. The long sight is very similar, except this one prevents you from looking at the cameras, so get ready to be startled when they appear in your doorway. And lastly, we have paralysis. No, not that kind of paralysis. This kind of paralysis doesn't allow you to move, which in hindsight is exactly why they call it sleep paralysis. Anyways, this pill does the least amount of harm since not being able to move isn't much of a detriment. But something to note about the pills is that you only get a handful of them. The issue I find with this is that you can just barely make it through this night with only 4 pills. In fact, during my playthrough, I died on this one since I ran out of pills and one of them came in right as I did. There's also no way to get any more pills, so once you're out, you're out. But alas, I will rate this room a 3 out of 5. I have some gripes with it, but I like the uniqueness of it, plus getting to see Ashley and Yoshi for the first time is great. The second and final bedroom in this game, this one however I would probably recommend sleeping in. Just if you aren't high as a cloud, because the enemies on this night are Wario and the last newcomer, DK, aka Donkey Kong. Wario works in an interesting way, because the only way to repel him is to click on the camera he's on, which will cause him to backtrack to his previous movement opportunity. DK, on the other hand, is much weirder. See, the reason you shouldn't be high in here is because this guy is not real, as he is a hallucination. Yeah, so he's basically a side effect from taking all those pills in the bathroom. He can be quite of a nuisance, as he can appear in your room and flipping down the monitor, and on every camera. However, simply flipping the monitor back up or changing cameras will get rid of him. Now, something to note about this game entirely is something you've also probably noticed, is that this entry in the series has mainly been a really unique fan game compared to the last two, which just felt like subpar reskins of official FNAF games. And I'm mainly bringing this up because Bedroom 2 is the first room in this game that directly pays homage to FNAF 3. Donkey Kong acts just like Phantom BB, appearing on every camera, and if you look at him for too long, he'll jump scare you. And Wario's mechanic is like Springtrap's mechanic, where you can play a sound to lure him to a different room. But unlike the other two games, where in those videos I complained about their copycat nature, in this instance, I don't actually mind the similarities. It mainly has to do with the fact that this isn't a homage in a single room, whereas FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 built their entire gameplay loop from copying FNAF 1 and 2. Because of this fact, I kinda dig Bedroom 2. It isn't the greatest, in fact it can get a little repetitive if I'm being honest, but I'm still going to rate it a 3.5 out of 5. I like the FNAF 3 homage, and it's an all-around decent room. Remember when I said Ashley only appeared in 2 rooms? Yeah, this is her final appearance in this game, and it's the staircase. Alongside her in this room, if you can even call it that, because you know, just like the hallway, it's not really a room, it's a staircase, but regardless, alongside her is Wario. He will try to attack from the door at the bottom of the stairs, and Ashley will attack you from the 2nd floor. To repel Wario, you must simply look at him when he enters living room 2, and after a bit, he will skiddy off. Ashley works differently. When you see her above you, click this button that's next to the camera, and you'll put your hands over your eyes. After a few seconds, Ashley will be gone. Yes, the hands mechanic may sound ridiculous, but I do find it to be another unique mechanic in this game. I think Ashley likes it too, because oh my lord, would she not leave me alone on this night. If you look at the footage, she just kept attacking like every 5 to 10 seconds, and it was just absurd. In fact, Wario barely attacked me, which led me to think for a while that he was bugged, but I don't believe he was. Anyways, if you're more fortunate than me, aka not having Ashley on steroids, then this night overall isn't that hard. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. The hand mechanic is unique, but it was kind of ruined for me by Ashley repeatedly attacking me, and Wario is also easy to deal with, but I do like having to actually use the cameras to defend yourself. I know, wild concept for a FNAF game. The second to last room you're allowed to choose, the laundry is one of 4 rooms to have 3 characters active. Those characters being Luigi, Waluigi, and Mario. Luigi and Waluigi work similar to each other in that you must do some sort of action depending on who's in the room. For Luigi, simply move left and right for a few seconds and he'll be gone. For Waluigi, simply sit still and he'll be gone. Key to knowing who entered the laundry is to track them on the cameras. They also make a noise when they're in the room. Mario is repelled by this washing machine, and by leaving it on all night, he cannot touch you. But the consequence of turning it on is that you can't hear the groaning noise that Luigi and Waluigi make. So I suggest turning off the machine once they enter so that you know when they leave. Honestly, I like the juggling of what you must do in this room. The risk and reward factor of the washing machine and having to carefully track both of the Luigis keeps you on your toes. Because of that, I will give this room a 4 out of 5. The mechanics I think are good, and the amount of stress I can get from this room also gives it some brownie points. Finally, the last selectable room, the third living room, also doubles as the last one. Though it honestly looks more like a dining room, so why Andy called this a living room is beyond me. Anyways, the characters on this night are Waluigi and Yoshi. And how you repel them is kind of a lot to explain, so I'll give it my best shot. Yoshi and Waluigi can only be stopped by cutting the lights in their respective paths. So, for example, cutting the lights in living room 2 will keep Yoshi stuck in bedroom 1, and cutting the lights in living room 1 will keep Waluigi stuck in the kitchen. The issue though is that you can only cut one room's lights at a time, meaning one of them will likely slip right under your nose and enter your room. The catch, however, is that they won't immediately kill you. Instead, they will stare at you for a few seconds before you die. The reason for this is because they have a slight chance of getting scared off by this clock on your left. But never rely on this for a victory, because the timing isn't always consistent, and it's best to just keep them at bay for as long as you can. Even after explaining how this room works, I still have never beaten it. Yes, this is the only room in this game that I have yet to beat. As you can see in the footage, I made it to 5 AM, but I didn't hold out long enough for 6 AM. The kind of strategy you must use for this night, I just can't master, and I might not ever master. Even so, I think the cutting lights mechanic is a unique one, and it does require a lot of strategy, even if I'm not good at said strategy, so I'll give this room a 2.5 out of 5. Well, that finally wraps up the rooms that you can select. I should mention that you can unlock a hard mode upon completing the game. It sounds just like what you'd expect. Each room becomes much more difficult. But because I wanted to have enough sanity to make this video, I did not play any room on hard mode. But if this game wasn't hard enough for you, give hard mode a shot. Anyways, at the end of this video, I will tally up the results and rank each room from worst to best. But there's still one more room left that I haven't discussed, and that's because I'm holding off talking about it until the story section. Also, just like always, there are some Easter eggs to be found in this game. Wario Man makes an appearance yet again, this time in Living Room 3 on rare occasions, and in a bigger role that I'll talk about later. When playing Living Room 3, you can click on this diary that's on the table. Doing so will start a cutscene that brings us back to the fnaf 2 office. In it, he wrote about his experience working at WarioWare Incorporated. He notes that Bowser's been stalking around the place, and that he hides in a tool storage to stay safe. Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out for you, Toad. The game opens with a nice little retrospective of its own, as it takes us back to the offices from the first 2 games. Are you doing alright there, Peach? Why are you laying down right there? This cutscene ends with a shot of the Wario Man costume with the text over it saying, "I can use this." After this, you're thrown into the game. As mentioned before, you're forced to play Living Room 1 without the option to pick another room. But shortly after beginning the night, you're greeted to this game's phone guy who gives you some not so great news.
Hello? Oh, thank God. You're in the house, right? Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Max. I'm one of the employees at your new job, but that's not important right now. What is important is for you to get out of there. I know someone hired you to watch over the house tonight because the family who is living there is on vacation, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know who told you that this house needed some sort of protection, but I'm pretty sure it was a prankster. You need to get out of there. That house you're in is apparently extremely haunted, and according to some files I have here, nobody has been living there for years.
Yep, you heard that right. This game's phone guy is none other than Razbowski, who, much like Dawko, is a well-known YouTuber in the FNAF community. Throughout most of the nights, he will of course give you some tips on how to survive in each room, but he also provides some backstory on the house itself. He claims that it likely belonged to a family, as there is a playroom and a child's bedroom in the house. Interestingly though, the game never confirms who owned this house. The full story video, however, did clarify who it belonged to. It was none other than our old pal Richard McRoy's family house. Now I don't know if that means Richard has a kid or he was a kid when he lived here, but judging from the state of it, I'll just assume it was the house he lived in as a kid. Speaking of Richard, he hijacks our usual phone call we get from Max on night 4.
Ooh, I can hear your heavy breath through the phone. Having a good time? I'm sure you are. They'll never find me. I'm too fast for them. I know this world better than any of those fools out there. And what about you? Can you hide? Can you hide from us? We're coming after you. But I'm sure you've figured that out already. Though, have you figured out where the exit is? I'm sure you haven't!
So, by now it's more than obvious that Richard isn't the one doing all this. Well, he is technically, but he's actually possessed by one of the spirits. I held up talking about it in the last retrospective, and that's mainly because FNAF 2 doesn't make it explicitly clear aside from the 2 times his voice is pitched all weird. But since he's possessed, who, you might be asking, is possessing him? Peach, of course. It might seem out of nowhere, but keep in mind, Peach is the only veteran character not present in the main game. Plus, we saw her lifeless corpse in the beginning cutscene, which was kind of like foreshadowing. Anyways, after many nights of torture, like failing Living Room 3 for the 1 millionth time, goddamn, you arrive at Night 5, which much like Night 1 is pre-selected. This room is the cellar, and when Max calls you like usual, this one doesn't really go as planned.
Hey man, good evening. So, how are you? Are you doing good? Man, I tell you what, the police have been crazy active today, and honestly, they're still at it. Someone must have done something really bad. Okay, tell me, where did you hide? What? Come again? A cellar? You gotta be joking, right? There's no cellar in that house, right? No, I'm positive. When we investigated the house several years ago, there was no sign of any basement whatsoever. I'm sorry, but I cannot help you here. Hey, what are you doing in here? This is for employees only. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ask you to...
Ooh, you look a lot like him. Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? Oops. Looks like he wasn't the one. But are you? Let me come over and check myself. See you there.
Now, like I said in the gameplay section, I'll do a quick rundown of this room and give it a rating. So, here we go. 3 characters you'll be dealing with in this room are Wario, Luigi, and Waluigi. Both Wario and Luigi come from the left and right respectively, and Waluigi appears in the doorway in front of you. Simply looking to the left will get rid of Luigi, and the same goes for Wario, except you'll need to look to the right instead. Waluigi is the wild card here, as you'll need to flash electricity to get rid of him. The monitor in this room also requires you to manually charge it, so be sure to do that, because once it runs out, you're toast. Now, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. This night is a little boring. Literally, all you do is flip up the monitor repeatedly, recharge it with a few clicks, and get rid of either one of the 3 characters. Rinse and repeat. Granted, some rooms in this game also felt boring and repetitive, and trust me, Living Room 1 is still the weakest room, but that doesn't change the fact that the cellar kinda sucks, and for that, I'm giving it a 1.5 out of 5. And that 0.5 comes from the fact that this has 3 characters to deal with. If it had anything less than that, it would have been a 1 out of 5. Anyways, upon beating Night 5, you get a cutscene that involves good old possessed Richard.
So it wasn't you either. Strange, you two look so similar. We will make him apologize. We will keep searching forever.
Then we get the bad ending? Yep, this is just like regular FNAF 3, where there are 2 endings to get. However, unlike FNAF 3, it is nowhere near as complex and cryptic. During your playthrough, you probably picked up these pieces that belong to something unknown. Well, upon visiting the extras menu, it turns out these pieces form a music box. Again, play the game a second time and choose the route you didn't pick the first time. Once the music box has been complete, head back to Night 5 and click on the music box in the bottom right. Doing so will activate a cutscene that nets you the good ending. It's pretty important, and it's also lengthy, so I'll just let the whole thing play out for you guys.
He did it. He apologised. He apologised for them, for what they did to us. I can feel it. Their forgiveness has brought peace to both him and them. I feel relieved.
This is your last warning! Put your hands above your head now!
I am free.
And so ends the tale of the Five Nights at Wario's story. For now, at least. Now, I'll admit, this ending does have some cheesy moments, like the fact that the guy inside the Wario Man costume killed all of them, and yet all he does is say, "I'm sorry," and everyone passes on? Like, what? Also, Richard getting shot by the police kind of comes out of nowhere, and plus his dialogue can sound a bit goofy, if I'm being honest. Yet I still think this ending is a decent way to cap off the series. Of course, we all know by now that that wouldn't last. Well, there you have it. The Five Nights at Wario's 3 retrospective that you probably didn't think was even going to come out. I'll admit, I procrastinated on this video quite a bit, but it mainly came down to the scale of this video. The final script was over 5,000 words long, which is more than double the amount of the previous 2. But fun fact, I actually started writing this script while I was out of town on my laptop, which I usually write these scripts on my main PC. As for the game itself, this was a massive improvement over the first 2. It's much more unique, mainly due to the mechanics, and while there are some rooms that are stinkers, most of them I would say are good or even great. Speaking of the rooms, let's rank all of them, shall we? In last place, we have Living Room 1. Shocker, I know. 11th place goes to Cellar, 10th goes to Living Room 2, 9th is Playroom 1, 8th is Living Room 3, 7th is Staircase, 6th is Bathroom 1, 5th is Bedroom 1, 4th is Kitchen, 3rd is Bedroom 2, 2nd is Hallway, and 1st place goes to Laundry, making it my pick for the best room in FNAF 3. Feel free to rank them how you would in the comments below. Anyways, that will do it for this lengthy video. Like I always say, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care.